Hello, I am Dr. Felice Gersh, and it's my pleasure to join you to discuss a very important topic: how to utilize fasting to optimize your weight. We now have an epidemic of overweight and obesity. Sometimes it's called excessive nutrition, overnutrition. Well, this leads to a host of problems, mostly involved with metabolism. So, metabolism is the production, distribution, utilization, and storage of energy. So, what is that all about? Well, there's two ways that the human stores energy. One is as glycogen, which is the storage form for glucose. We have very limited stores of glycogen, predominantly in the liver and in the muscle. And when those get used up, what else do we have as storage for energy? It's fat or adipose tissue. Well, many of us have too much of that adipose tissue, and we struggle so much to try to lose it. Now, what do we know for sure? We know for sure that trying to starve yourself for days on end is a surefire way to fail. Now, you can lose weight that way, but keeping it off is next to impossible. In fact, 98% of weight loss that's achieved through chronic states of caloric restriction lead to regain. That's because very, very few people will live an entire lifetime of caloric restriction, which leads to a chronic state of hunger. It's just not the human way. We don't want to always live every day of our life being hungry. So once someone loses the weight, they usually start returning to eating more calories. And what happens is when you lose weight by long-term caloric restriction, the metabolism rate, the ability to burn fat, actually decreases, and it takes more and more effort, lower and lower consumption of calories and food to maintain the weight as at the lost weight status. So, for example, if someone lost weight through starvation, essentially through caloric restriction, and they get to a weight of 150, someone else weighs 150 pounds, but that's the weight they have just maintained. They didn't have to lose weight to get to that weight. The person who lost weight will say 50 pounds from 200 down to 150 has to eat far less and exercise far more than the person who is currently at 150 pounds in order to maintain that weight. So let's put that to rest. People are not going to succeed long term losing weight through any program, no matter what the dietary composition, through chronic restriction of caloric intake. So, say we want to lose extra fat. How are we going to lose it? Well, it turns out that varying forms of fasting is the best way to go about it, combined, of course, with reducing environmental toxicants like plastics and flame retardants and pesticides and that sort of thing, which actually can impair the metabolic function of the body, and through getting optimal sleep and getting fitness and lowering stress. So I don't want to say that those are not important. And we're going to talk about those because they all contribute to lifestyle, which ultimately determines someone's health status, along with a few things like luck and genes. So let's talk about varying forms of fasting and how that can really aid in weight loss. There's a few different types. One is intermittent fasting. That's where you eat or don't eat according to the 24-hour day, the 24-hour rotation of Earth on its axis. That means that you eat according to the way our genes were designed for you to eat. That means you should eat in the morning a good-sized breakfast of healthy foods, not the conventional American breakfast foods, because they're ridiculous, processed carbs and sugars and fats. So it would be like any meal. You would just eat healthy vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and so forth. And you can call anything a breakfast food, just call it breakfast, okay? I just like to call it a meal nowadays, morning meal. So you eat a good-sized breakfast, a medium lunch, and a small early dinner, if possible. And try not to snack in between. Try to stop eating by 7 p.m. That is intermittent fasting. And try to have 13 hours approximately from dinner to breakfast. We want to have 13-hour nighttime fast. And it's really important not to eat in the middle of the night. We are not designed to properly digest. We don't have good insulin sensitivity at night. So try to eat most of your calories during the day, preferably in the first half of the day, and stop eating to have a 13-hour fast overnight, and don't snack. That's intermittent fasting. And there's data that shows that if you eat most of your food for breakfast, you will lose weight. If you eat most of your food for dinner, the same exact food, you will gain weight. So please don't do that. That's the typical way of eating most of your food at night. We all have done that. But statistically, that is the fast track to gaining weight, not losing weight. Now, another type of fasting is called alternate day fasting or the 5-2. So there's a variety of different variations. Also, you can have modified fasting. That's where you would fast every other day, 2 out of the 7 days of the week. That's what they call the 5-2. Or if you do modified fasting, that's where you eat about 25% or fewer calories compared to your normal day. And that would be modified fasting. That will do the following things. It will reduce your caloric intake on those days, but not on the alternate days, the days that you are eating. That will give you an overall reduced caloric intake without chronic caloric restriction. That will not lower your overall metabolic rate. That is what is so important. If you constantly reduce your caloric intake, you will ultimately lower your metabolic set point. And then it will take fewer and fewer calories to have eaten to maintain the same weight. So if you eat too much, if you go back to your normal eating, that would be too much and you will gain weight if you continuously stop eating or eat very little. So you will not alter your metabolic set point if you only have a fast every other day or 2 days out of the week or even 1 day if it's too hard to do more than 1 day. This is going to lower inflammation and it's going to lower caloric intake. And by doing that, you will lose weight. By losing weight, by lowering inflammation in your body, you will potentially reverse prediabetes, the early stage diabetes, lower your high blood pressure, and enable you to feel better, reduce sleep apnea, and so forth. So that's a good long-term strategy. It's not easy to not eat 1, 2, or even 3 days or eat very little that number of days per week. But it has been shown that will really help you to lose weight and sustain the weight loss, but you need to keep it up. Another way of fasting is what's called periodic fasting. That is where you will do a fasting mimicking diet for 5 days out of the month. There's a company that makes fasting mimicking diets called L Nutra, and their product is called Prolon. And I actually am affiliated with that company. I've worked with Walter Longo, who is the director of the Longevity Institute at USC, where they developed the fasting mimicking diet, which is really brilliant. You eat food for 5 days that they have created and package and sell, and it flies under the nutrient sensors that are located in the brain, in the hypothalamus. So your body thinks you're fasting, but you're actually eating, which makes it actually doable. Because if you've ever tried to fast for 4 days straight, just drinking water, that is really hard. And if you do it once, it's not likely you're going to do it again. But if you actually eat 3, but little, but actual 3 meals a day, and you get to have a nice energy drink, and you get to sit down, you have 2 soups, a nut bar, that is actually doable. I know that because I don't do well with water fasting, but I have done the fasting mimicking diet. Now, what happens when you do that? It actually reduces your caloric intake because this is a low calorie diet that you have for the 5 days. Because remember, it's mimicking fasting. It's a very low protein diet because protein is what triggers most of the nutrient sensors in the brain. It is a diet formulated to fly under the radar. That's why I call it stealth food. Now, when you do this on a repetitive basis, I don't mean once, but you do it every month for 5 days, and it's for 4 months straight, and you eat healthy foods. plant-based diet, clean, preferably predominantly organic, and no processed food, processed sugars, processed carbs, and chemicals, and so on, then what that does is it not only lowers your caloric intake during those days, gives you willpower, it makes you feel great, but it triggers a process in the body called mitogenesis, where you trigger the production of more mitochondria, rejuvenating the internal organelles of cells. You have a healthier body. You have a better ability to burn fat. Also, when you do a multi-day fast, at least 3 days of a water fast or the fasting mimicking diet, which is for 5 days, what happens is that it will also help to reinvigorate the gut microbiome. You rejuvenate the gut microbiome to be more diverse, and you improve gut barrier health so that it helps to heal a leaky gut. This in turn will allow better ability of the body to detoxify. It will also lower systemic inflammation, and inflammation drives what? Insulin resistance. And when you have insulin resistance, you're going to have higher levels of glucose, and the combination promotes fat production and storage, which is the antithesis of what you're trying to do. And the body cannot multitask and burn fat and build fat at the same time. So if you have high insulin and glucose, you are going to be building and storing fat, not burning fat. So it's wonderful to incorporate these different fasting techniques, lower inflammation with 5-2 or alternate day fasting or modified fasting, lower inflammation, and trigger autophagy and mitophagy, which is cellular and mitochondrial rejuvenation, with a short but multi-day, at least 3 days or 4 days of a water fast or a fasting mimicking diet. When you combine these different fasting modalities along with a healthy diet, and when you're eating on the regular days, you do time restricted eating. So you try to push most of your food intake into the morning, stop snacking, stop eating late at night. You can have sustainable weight loss, not just weight loss, but sustainable weight loss, and optimize your health. And I can tell you this is doable. I have seen the success multiple times. So weight is a problem for many people, but weight loss can happen and be sustained and successful. So thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon.